Episode 8 of The Mandalorian was a perfect 10. It finished season 1 on such a high note, and the way it brought up things we know about from other Star Wars films or shows was amazing. Taika Waititi is a fantastic director, and the only person who made me like Thor ever. So that's pretty huge to me. So let's talk about what went down in episode 8, titled Redemption. And yes, I realize I have skipped episode 7. So this show begins with the 2 scout troopers who previously stole Baby Yoda from Kuiil, basically parked out, being bored while waiting for orders. The dynamic between the two was pretty funny, kind of Tag and Binks-like. One is clearly older and more reserved, while the other guy won't shut up. While they talk, they also learn that Moff Gideon has been killing his own men for petty reasons, like interrupting him. And during all of this back and forth, they also take a few whacks at Baby Yoda out of annoyance. And at that point, I was like, yeah, you are both going to die. Thankfully, the newly programmed IG-11 shows up saying,
I am this child's nurse droid.
Hilarious. But it was so endearing. His prime directive is to keep the child safe, and in doing so, he kills the 2 troopers in the most epic fashion. I love seeing IG-11 move his mechanical body around, and I also loved that he apologized to Baby Yoda for this show of carnage. Back where the Mando, Greef Karga, and Cara are trapped, they are trying to figure out how to escape, and the Mandalorian thinks it might be possible to use the sewers to escape through that lead to his Coburn. Outside, Moff Gideon has his legion of stormtroopers assembling a weapon. It's an E-Web heavy repeating blaster, and as it's being assembled, he is explaining what it is, what it will do, and that he knows who each of them are on an individual level. He says Cara Dune is from Alderaan, exposing the real reason why she joined the rebellion, which was for revenge. He knows who the Mandalorian is, revealing that his name is officially Din Djarin, and we've all known that name, but I've just been avoiding saying it. And finally, he called out Greef Karga's name. Moff Gideon was an old Imperial officer who was part of the siege of Mandalore. He was ISB. Moff Gideon wants to reasonably negotiate, but he also offers zero trust. They are in this situation because of the Mandalorians betraying the code of the guild. They have until nightfall to decide on their next set of action. Cara Dune mentions that she doesn't want to get caught because they will bring her to a mind flayer, which made me think of something like Bor Gullet, or maybe even something pertaining to the Force, like a Force mind probe, but either way, it seems very unpleasant. Din Djarin explains that it's Moff Gideon who is outside. At first, nobody believes him because he was supposed to have died for his war crimes, but either way, he lives. The reason the Mando even knows this is because the only known record of his birth name was on Mandalore, and Gideon was an officer during the Purge of Mandalore, most likely accessing the Register of Mandalore, leading to Din Djarin's name. It is also revealed that now, through flashbacks, that it was Death Watch who saved the young Din Djarin from the Super Battle Droids invasion on his homeworld. He reveals he isn't a natural-born Mandalorian, explaining that now it's a creed, and it's a creed that one adopts as a foundling. The fact that it was Death Watch that saved him means to me that there was some kind of poaching going on to a certain degree. Death Watch was backed by Count Dooku and the Separatist army for a time, so hopefully we get more information on what went down in regards to why Din Djarin's village was overrun. If it was primarily to get foundlings, then that's really messed up. But even if we don't get that official backstory, I like how this ties into existing canon. The visual of the Death Watch Mandalorian lifting Din Djarin away to safety as a child was beautiful, and it also occurs in a way towards the end of this episode with Din and Baby Yoda. Now I understand why Din Djarin follows the creed of the Mandalore. In his eyes, they are his saviors, his reason for still being alive. But if he finds out there was a dark undercurrent to that event, everything could change, and that could be part of season 2 for all that we know. Now, the only reason that Din, Cara, and Greef are not dead yet is because it's obvious that Gideon knows the asset was taken. He was probably unable to communicate with the 2 scout troopers that originally had Baby Yoda. Din Djarin fails to reach Kuiil because he doesn't know that he's dead yet, but IG-11 chimes in through the comm to let him know of his fate. And what occurs next was incredible. Baby Yoda is strapped to the speeder bike like E.T. on a BMX bike, and IG-11 is following his protocol of eliminating anything which will harm the child. He tears his way through the gates of the city, destroying stormtroopers left and right. It's amazing, it's hilarious, and it's thrilling. And for a TV show, this was movie quality action. It looked so good. The close-up shots of Baby Yoda giggling and having fun during this also added to my overall enjoyment of the sequence. It was really really fun and really intense. Now, because of IG-11, the legion of stormtroopers at Moff Gideon's command begin dispersing, trying to figure out how to take the incoming threat. IG-11 discards the speeder bike, using it as a weapon, creating an explosion, and then all hell breaks loose. The Mando, Cara, and Greef all start shooting down stormtroopers and taking down death troopers, and it truly is this season's ultimate showdown. Repeating his epic move from episode 1, the Mando grabs the E-Web blaster and starts annihilating as many stormtroopers as he can. He's basically like Star Wars Rambo in this scene. Through all the chaos, Moff Gideon shows up, cool, calm, and collected. He can see what the Mandalorian is doing and shoots his helmet just once to get his attention, and then shoots the E-Web blaster's power supply, which explodes and takes out the Mandalorian, wounding him almost fatally. Cara, Greef, and IG-11 all get back to safety inside of the compound, and Gideon orders that they be burned out alive. Din Djarin wants to be left to die so that the child can get to safety. He puts the needs of the little Baby Yoda before himself. Eventually, the Flame Trooper arrives, and we see that Baby Yoda can understand what is about to go down. As far as he is concerned, Din truly is his father, so Baby Yoda, in an epic display of power, uses the Force to propel the incoming flames back at the Flame Trooper, and finally, he gestures his little hand flicking back at the fire, and then it just goes back and hits the Flame Trooper, and it kills him. This whole part of this episode was amazing to me as a Star Wars fan. This show tastefully uses the Force with Baby Yoda when there were no more options. And visually, the sequence was beautiful, and it gave me the chills during my first viewing. It's just really great. It's so naturally used. The Force is so naturally used in this show, if that makes any sense. IG-11 ends up opening a grate that will help them all escape to the sewers so that he can stay with the Mando and heal his wound. At first, Din Djarin is hesitant to receive help. He basically thinks that he's dead. Plus, he can't show his face to any living thing, or else he can never put his helmet back on. Luckily, IG-11 isn't alive, so we actually get our first glimpse at the Mandalorian's face. And it was a well-timed moment. Although Din Djarin has been shown to be calm, calculating, and strong, he looks scared here and just like a normal guy. He's a human like you and me. He's afraid of dying, and if I had to guess, a bit sad about it too. It was almost like an homage to Darth Vader's face reveal. When you see that, you're like, wow, that guy's not scary. You know, I really like that a lot. I find it sort of poetic, or maybe it's ironic, that a droid ends up saving Din Djarin's life when originally droids were going to kill him as a child. It shows us, rather than telling us, that the Mandalorian is starting to trust people, or at least droids more, you know? He's letting his guard down, and IG-11 sprays Bacta where the Mando is wounded, and within hours, he will eventually be healed. After he is saved, Din and IG-11 reunite with Cara, the child, and Greef down in the sewers, trying to locate the members of the Coburn, but no one is found at all. They locate a pile of Mandalorian armor, which causes a quick rift between Karga and Din. But what really happened was this clan exposed themselves the second they helped the Mandalorian escape Navarro with the asset. The Imperial remnants who arrived after the Mando's initial escape killed almost everyone in the clan. Thankfully, the clan leader, this armorer, still lives, and she won't leave until she has collected all the remaining Mandalorian armor. And during the sequence, she meets Baby Yoda and learns that it was this child who helped Din against the Mudhorn. She explains to everyone that she's heard stories about powers like this from an order of sorcerers that call themselves Jedi. She says the Jedi were their enemies, but that this child is not. It just happens to have that power. In her eyes, Din has a foundling, and by creed, he must either return the baby Yoda to his homeworld and species, or teach it the ways of the Mandalore. And, as of now, he is officially Baby Yoda's father. To me, it was all a pretty touching moment, because we've all been calling the Mandalorian a dad online and on Twitter, making memes about it. And now it's official. The dynamic will be very interesting in Season 2. The Armorer tells the Mandalorian that they will escape using a boat which travels on molten lava, and the Mando finally receives his signet, which is still the Mudhorn, but because Baby Yoda was not his enemy, and is in fact now his family, he has earned his clan's emblem. He is a party of two. The Armorer also gives Din his first jetpack to complete his armor ensemble. And one more time, the Mandalorian tries to get the Armorer to leave with them, but she will not leave anything behind. They can hear troopers coming at this point, so they start escaping, saying thank you to the clan leader, who then proceeds to kick each and every single one of the stormtroopers' asses who are after Din Djarin and the asset. At first, I figured, damn, she's going to sacrifice herself, but nope, she was destined to kick ass, and it was amazing. Seeing shards of the stormtrooper's helmet break off in slow motion was great, and the whole fight was just so well done and very visceral. I'm also pretty positive that one trooper melted away when he fell into that molten Beskar pit. I thought that was pretty insane. Now back with the Mando and crew, they reach the lava river, which will lead them to safety. They get onto this boat, which can take the heat of the lava, and a modified R2 unit ends up coming to life as basically the captain of the vessel. Visually, the modified R2 unit was really cool to look at, but it was also a little creepy. To be honest, I wouldn't mind a collectible of one of these on my shelf, so hey, maybe they'll make a Black Series. At the end of this lava river is an opening, but the stormtroopers have already amassed there, waiting for the boat to come through the mouth, exposing them all. Because of this, IG-11 decides to sacrifice himself because his primary directive is to keep the child safe, but there is no scenario in which he lives and the child lives. He decides that since his manufacturer's protocol dictates he cannot be captured, that he will walk out to the stormtroopers and self-destruct, bringing a very sad end to arguably one of my favorite new droids in Star Wars. I loved when he called out Din Djarin for being sad in this episode, and he did it so matter-of-factly. The dry humor of droids in Star Wars is strong. At the climax of this episode, Moff Gideon shows up in his TIE fighter, trying to end this standoff once and for all, reclaiming the asset. Greef has a really humorous moment asking if Baby Yoda can do that hand thing, and then it cuts to Baby Yoda doing what can only be described as jazz hands, and that's it. It was super funny, and Baby Yoda just doesn't have the control yet to use the Force on command. The Mandalorian takes matters into his own hands, waiting for the right moment when Moff Gideon would be heading directly for them all, and he uses his new jetpack to fly high up into the air above the TIE fighter, and then latch onto the TIE's wing. As Vader would say,
most impressive.
Even the Moff is like, God damn, what just happened? Gideon tries to force the Mando to fall off of his fighter, but the Mando is hooked in, and he ends up attaching a detonator to the wing after one failed attempt, and finally, after the Mandalorian drops away from harm, the TIE wing explodes, sending the Moff down hard into the ground. Initially, we are unsure of the Moff's fate, so we cut back to the Mando and his friends. Now that all the hostiles have been eliminated, it's almost like starting fresh for Greef Karga, who wants Cara and the Mando to stick around. During this talk, little baby Yoda walks up to Din and hugs his leg, hammering home that he now has a new duty as a father. So the Mandalorian states that he has more pressing matters, which is being the honorary father of this foundling, as well as attempting to find its homeworld. If the Mando does return, Karga tells him that he can have any bounty he wants, and they all part ways. And the saddest part of this episode for me, it's a quick shot of the Mando making this burial site in honor of Kuiil's sacrifice. My favorite Ugnaught is gone. It was a good moment of honor for this guy too. I was worried that they would be like, yeah, he died, okay, next. But no, they took some time to honor the character, and I really appreciate that as a fan. And as the Mando takes off, he sees the child playing with the necklace he gave Cara that had the mythosaur on it. To me, it was a cute moment between the two. And if this little baby Yoda actually becomes a Force-wielding Mandalorian, I'll lose my mind in the best way. Imagine this guy in Mandalorian armor. So this episode ends in a very huge, dramatic way. As Jawas are scavenging the wreckage of Moff Gideon's TIE, the Darksaber itself ignites from the inside of the TIE fighter, and the Moff cuts his way out. He is in possession of the Darksaber. And that's just how the season ends. He's standing on top of his TIE fighter like a hero. It's a really perfect cliffhanger to get me to want to stick around for a whole year and wait for season 2. So I think The Mandalorian season 1 is a miracle. I was very skeptical about Star Wars TV. I was worried it was going to look kind of goofy, but in a bad way. But thankfully, we were given almost 7 hours of Star Wars that was crafted with a lot of care. And I like that there are a lot of threads that we can think about leading up to season 2, that we can speculate on, which I'm a big fan of doing. So definitely expect a video of me analyzing this entire series, the whole season 1, and talking about where I think the whole series is actually going to be going in the second season. And like I mentioned earlier, I did skip episode 7 due to the holidays. Perhaps I will go back and post a review, but for now, I am focusing more on the current Star Wars content. Thanks for watching and supporting the channel, and as always, may the Force be with you. AT-AT is signing off.